Happy Tuesday, everybody. Times are stressful right now for a lot of people, and I wanted to come on here and talk to you all about a very specific phenomenon that might happen in your workplace. And that phenomenon is the coworker crash out. It's specifically if you see, your coworker, really about to flip their lid in the staff meeting, you need to pay attention. And what you might want to do is you might want to pull that coworker to the side, especially if you have a good rapport, and have a conversation with them. Because you might be saving some lives. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. And one of the things that I have experienced my many years of working many jobs now is people who absolutely crash out on the job, and things can go left real quick when people are on their edge. I've had coworkers who've killed themselves. I've had coworkers who've killed their families. I've had people come up to I've seen people come up to the job and assault their managers, and they ain't playing. They ain't playing. They ain't playing. They ain't playing. When people are at their wits' end, they're financially, stressed. And even if they're not, but for the most part, a lot of people, when they feel like I'm at my wits' end, and they don't really have a whole lot, their resources are low, their money's low, and they're being overworked. They may be laid off, or you have a manager that's micromanaging and nitpicking and might be inappropriate, because I've had managers do that too, who have been inappropriate and will embarrass a colleague in front of a room full of other colleagues. And in the world of psychologists, you just don't do that. And I'll do another video about that. But when you have someone that's like at their wits' end, and they start, their voice starts shaking, their face might turn red, or you could hear the change in their voice, and they start coming sharp with it. They start biting back. That manager says something and they bite back real fast. No, it is, something's going on with that coworker, and they're about to flip their lid. And if you know what's good for you, if you know what's good for your colleagues, because sometimes you have a manager that's like, they might be on a power kick, or they're dealing with their own stuff, whatever the case may be, and they don't care. Just do your job or do what I tell you to do. I don't really want you to, I don't really want to have a back and forth conversation with you. And so a lot of times a manager might miss it, you know, or they don't see it. But for someone like me who's worked in mental health, and worked with a lot of people who've been professional killers or and whatnot, I could see it coming. So I always try to talk to these people, off to the side, in confidence, colleague to colleague. Hey, is everything okay? I noticed that you're getting upset. And a lot of times it's not usually a one-off thing either when they get upset. Sometimes it might be, because sometimes it just might be over the top, where it's like an explosion and there's yelling, especially when people get to yelling and moving their seats and getting in faces or pointing and things like. Nah, you want to have that sidebar conversation. Nobody really needs to know about it, unless people are making threats that you can't contain. But you could see it like a ticking time bomb when somebody's about ready to blow their lid. And this is something I used to do with inmates all the time, because I could see it in them too. Like, when they're ratcheting up, and they're like, all they got to do is say one more thing and it's game over, and anybody who gets in the way is game over for you too. And when you have these sidebar conversations and you talk to people like they're a human being, is everything okay? Is there anything that you need? I noticed that you were upset, and maybe you need to take a day or so off, those kind of things. If people respect you, they'll talk to you, they'll listen to you. When you can reach them, you can. Presumably, it hasn't gone past the point of no return, because sometimes, when things ratchet up so fast, it can go past the point of no return. And what's going to happen is just going to happen. You might as well just duck for cover and get under your desk and get out of there. Because at that point, it has nothing to do with you. And there's nothing you might can intervene, physically if you have to, but, otherwise, just try to talk to people. I think that's what a lot of people are missing today anyway, is those conversations, that respect and that professionalism, and just somebody who gives a damn. Not, that, it's not going to hold it against them, but actually gives a damn and cares about their well-being. You could be saving some lives. I'm not even being funny about that. This is particularly true when you have men and women who are in service, and who carry weapons and things like that. You don't want people like that losing control, and getting to the point of no return. And it can get very dangerous. And a lot of times what happens, with servicemen and women that you guys don't get to hear about a lot, but I've seen it, in working with, officers, corrections officers and whatnot. A lot of times you have things like murder suicides and things like that that happen in their home, and next thing you know, you're hearing about your colleague on the news. So try to talk to people. If you don't feel comfortable talking to people, then maybe taking your supervisor or somebody that that they have rapport with, maybe talking to them and saying, hey, you might want to go check on so and so, and seeing if they're okay. I noticed that they got upset and it was a little concerning. So, if you see them again ratcheting up, getting mad, getting red in the face, pointing, yelling, screaming. Another thing might be, if they're angrily and aggressively, talking to themselves, and another sign, I've had this happen too. When you see a coworker at work with a suitcase, they're not catching a flight out of work that day, but they're repeatedly showing up with the suitcase, and you want to talk to somebody about that. That's usually not a good sign either. Either they're living there or they've got something in there that somebody needs to check on. So I'm just put that right there. Hope this helps. Let me know what you guys think. Take care.